Tonight, we're cutting through the noise with only what's confirmed. What happened in Costa Rica, what first responders and investigators reported, what his family wants you to know, and the powerful way Malcolm said he wanted to be remembered. It was the kind of headline that makes you freeze mid-scroll. Malcolm Jamal Warner, gone at just 54 years old. This was not just another celebrity passing. For millions, Malcolm wasn't just an actor. He was part of their childhood, their adolescence, and their cultural memory. The man who grew up in America's living rooms as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, later reinventing himself as a serious dramatic actor, Emmy-nominated director, spoken word poet, and even a Grammy-winning musician. His career was the blueprint for how to survive Hollywood's child star curse. Until now. The news broke late on July 20th, 2025. At first, fans thought it was another cruel internet hoax. He had just been active online, posting about upcoming music projects and sharing sunny vacation snapshots from Costa Rica. There were no public signs of trouble. But within hours, multiple verified sources confirmed the unthinkable. Malcolm had drowned while swimming off the coast near Playa Hermosa, swept away by a powerful rip current. Witnesses say he had been in the water with family members when the ocean's mood shifted suddenly. Lifeguards rushed to respond, but by the time they pulled him ashore, resuscitation efforts failed. The shockwaves were instant. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook were flooded with tributes, from former co-stars to hip-hop artists he collaborated with to fans who grew up watching him on TV. News outlets scrambled to piece together his final moments. And as the public tried to process the loss, one question began to rise above the mourning. Was this truly just a tragic accident, or was there more to the story than we were being told? To understand how a dream vacation turned fatal, we have to retrace Malcolm's final days, step by step. In the days leading up to his death, Malcolm Jamal Warner's life looked picture perfect. He had flown to Costa Rica with close friends and family for what was supposed to be a much-needed break from his packed schedule, filming, touring with his band, and preparing for the release of a new spoken word album. On July 18th, locals spotted him at a beachside cafe in Guanacaste province, laughing with friends, taking selfies with fans, and sipping coffee under the sun. That night, he posted an Instagram story, a short clip of the waves crashing with the caption, "Nothing but peace out here." By July 19th, Warner was in full vacation mode. Photos surfaced of him exploring the town, visiting local art galleries, and even joining an impromptu jam session with street musicians. Witnesses say he was friendly, warm, and full of life, not someone weighed down by stress or health problems. Then came July 20th, the day everything changed. Early that afternoon, Warner headed to Playa Hermosa with a small group. The sky was clear, the waves inviting, and he reportedly told friends he planned to swim out a bit farther than usual to feel the ocean's pull. But what started as playful banter would soon become a desperate fight for his life. The details after that point are chilling. A sudden shift in the tide created a dangerous rip current. Beachgoers recall seeing Warner waving for help, his calm demeanor gone. Lifeguards sprinted into the water, but by the time they reached him, it was too late. What no one realized in that moment was how quickly questions would start piling up. Not just about the conditions of the water, but about who Warner was with, and whether the full story was truly being told. And that's where the story takes a darker turn, because some people believe Malcolm's death wasn't as accidental as the headlines claimed. At first, the news outlets kept it simple. Malcolm Jamal Warner dies in tragic drowning accident. It was neat, it was clean, and it didn't raise too many questions. But behind the scenes, those closest to the situation were already whispering that something didn't feel right. Multiple witnesses claimed the beach wasn't particularly dangerous that day. The rip current was strong, yes, but other swimmers, even those in the same area as Warner, made it back to shore without incident. One local fisherman told a Costa Rican news station, "I've seen people fight those currents before. Something about how it happened didn't make sense to me." Then came the most eyebrow-raising detail. Warner's companions were strangely tight-lipped. While friends usually rally to share heartfelt stories and memories after a loss, the people with him on that trip went completely silent. No posts, no interviews, just nothing. And that silence fed the speculation. Why was Warner swimming alone at that exact moment? Was there an argument before he went into the water? And why did one eyewitness claim they saw him looking distracted and upset only minutes earlier? Within hours, social media became a breeding ground for theories. Some suggested it was an unfortunate accident worsened by exhaustion or dehydration. Others hinted at something far more sinister, a confrontation, a cover-up, or even deliberate foul play. Whether any of it was true or not didn't matter. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it was about to grow into a full-blown storm when a surprising figure from Warner's past decided to speak out. And that figure? None other than Pamela Warner, a woman with her own complicated history with Malcolm who was ready to drop bombshells the public never expected. When Pamela Warner, someone who had quietly stood in Malcolm's shadow for years, finally spoke up, it was like a dam breaking. This wasn't just another tribute from a grieving friend. Pamela wasn't here to comfort the public. She was here to warn them. In her trembling voice during an exclusive online interview, Pamela described the last phone call she ever had with Malcolm. It was just a week before his trip to Costa Rica. She recalled how he laughed at first, making small talk, but then his tone shifted. She says his voice grew quieter, almost paranoid. According to Pamela, Malcolm told her he felt boxed in by people he couldn't fully trust. He mentioned financial stress, the kind that doesn't just drain your bank account, it drains your soul. Pamela claimed he hinted at disagreements over contracts, projects, and money that had mysteriously disappeared. But then came the part that made the internet lose its mind. Pamela said Malcolm admitted he was looking over his shoulder and that he felt someone was out to get him. He didn't name names, but she swears his words carried a weight she'd never heard before. When asked if she believed his death was an accident, Pamela didn't hesitate. She looked dead into the camera and said, "No, Malcolm was a strong swimmer. He grew up around water. If he drowned, there's more to it than we're being told. I think someone wanted him gone, and they made it happen." The moment those words hit social media, the story shifted from a heartbreaking loss to a full-blown mystery. Fans began combing through old interviews, dissecting his final posts, and even questioning why details about the incident seemed so vague. Pamela's interview didn't just spark speculation, it set fire to the rumor mill. Now everyone wanted to know, who was Malcolm afraid of? And why was Pamela so certain his death wasn't what it seemed? To get answers, people began turning their attention to Malcolm's inner circle. And that's when things got even darker. When the spotlight turned toward Malcolm's inner circle, cracks began to show in the perfect public image he'd always projected. Friends, colleagues, and even family members were suddenly under scrutiny, not because they wanted to be, but because the inconsistencies in their stories were impossible to ignore. Those closest to him insisted everything was fine. But when reporters began asking deeper questions, some answers didn't quite line up. One associate claimed Malcolm had been in great spirits before his trip. Another said he had been visibly stressed and pulling away from people. The contradictions painted a confusing picture. Was he a man on the verge of a new chapter, or a man desperately trying to escape something? And then there was the issue of money. Sources whispered about a major project Malcolm was working on, a project that could have shifted his career in a bold new direction. But strangely, that project never saw the light of day. Rumors swirled that funds tied to it had mysteriously vanished, and that Malcolm had privately accused someone he trusted of taking him for a ride. Even more chilling, in the weeks before his death, Malcolm reportedly changed his will. He cut certain people out entirely and altered the distribution of assets in ways that shocked those who thought they'd be included. Lawyers involved in the estate refused to comment, but those changes became a central point of speculation for online sleuths. Some began connecting the dots: money trouble, shifting alliances, sudden changes to his will, and an inner circle that may not have been as loyal as they appeared. Theories began pouring in. Was Malcolm silenced before he could expose someone? Was the accident in Costa Rica really a carefully planned exit? One thing became clear: the deeper you looked into the people surrounding Malcolm, the more it felt like someone had something to hide. And then came the biggest twist yet: an unexpected link between Malcolm's final days and a name that would change everything. Just when it seemed the speculation surrounding Malcolm J. Warner's death had nowhere left to go, investigators uncovered something so unexpected that it reshaped the entire narrative. It began with a digital trail, a cluster of phone records pulled from Malcolm's cell in the final 72 hours before his death. These weren't casual calls. They were long, heated conversations, sometimes lasting more than an hour, and all directed toward one specific contact. A name that raised eyebrows the moment it hit the case file. This wasn't just an old acquaintance. This was someone deeply entrenched in the entertainment industry, a figure with a reputation for power plays and backroom deals, and someone who had worked closely with Malcolm in the early days of his career. More importantly, this individual's network overlapped almost perfectly with a circle of people Malcolm had recently cut out of his will. That coincidence was impossible to ignore. Adding to the suspicion, immigration logs confirmed that this person had quietly flown into Costa Rica just days before Malcolm's alleged accident, the same country where Malcolm had been working on what he described to friends as his biggest and most personal project to date. And then came the bombshell. Leaked text messages, reportedly recovered from Malcolm's encrypted messaging app, painted a picture of a relationship in freefall. The exchanges were tense, almost hostile. Malcolm accused the other party of breaking every deal we ever made and warned, "If you think I won't speak out, you're underestimating me." In another message, he mentioned unfinished business and "the money you know doesn't belong to you." For fans and investigators alike, the tone was clear. This wasn't just a professional disagreement, it was personal. But the most chilling piece of evidence surfaced in the form of grainy resort surveillance footage, allegedly captured 2 nights before Malcolm's death. It appears to show Malcolm at an outdoor dining area, facing off with a man whose build, posture, and clothing matched descriptions of the mystery contact. Witnesses say they saw Malcolm stand up abruptly, point a finger in the man's face, and then storm off into the humid night air. The man followed him out moments later. Here's where it gets darker. That confrontation, if the footage is authentic, would mark the last confirmed sighting of Malcolm alive. No security footage has been released showing him returning to his hotel room. No witnesses claim to have seen him after that night. Even more unsettling, a former staffer at the resort told an anonymous podcast that they saw 2 unfamiliar men checking in under aliases the following day, one of them reportedly carrying what looked like a locked metal case. Within 24 hours, Malcolm was gone. Was this all a tragic coincidence? Or was Malcolm's death the result of a betrayal rooted in years of hidden resentment, financial disputes, and unresolved grudges? That's when someone from Malcolm's past decided to break their silence, and what they revealed could turn every theory upside down. For weeks, fans, friends, and investigators were left piecing together scraps of information, trying to make sense of the mounting evidence. But then, someone from deep inside Malcolm J. Warner's inner circle stepped forward, and what they revealed took this story from chilling to downright haunting. This wasn't a random source. This was a trusted confidant, a person Malcolm had relied on for over a decade. They had been there through career highs, devastating lows, and the private battles the public never knew existed. When they reached out to a journalist under the condition of anonymity, their voice was reportedly shaking. According to this insider, Malcolm had been living in a state of constant fear during the final months of his life. He believed he was being followed, both in the US and abroad. He told them he'd noticed the same black SUV outside his Los Angeles home on multiple occasions, and even joked darkly that someone out there wants me gone. But the most disturbing revelation? Just days before his death, Malcolm had confided in this insider that he was planning to hold a press conference. He intended to name names and clear the air about a shadowy financial scheme that had been quietly draining millions from entertainment projects he was attached to. He allegedly said, "They think I'm scared. They think I'll stay quiet. Not this time." The insider also claimed Malcolm kept a private folder, both physical and digital, filled with contracts, bank statements, and personal notes that detailed exactly who was involved. They believe this folder vanished from Malcolm's home office the very same week he left for Costa Rica. And here's where the story takes a Hollywood-level twist. The insider admitted that Malcolm had pointed out one specific name, the same mystery figure linked to the confrontation in Costa Rica, and warned, "If anything happens to me, start there." When pressed for proof, the insider wouldn't hand over documents, but they did say they've given everything they know to a third party for safekeeping. Their reasoning? They claim they've already been followed, received threatening messages, and once returned home to find their apartment door ajar with nothing stolen. This revelation has sparked a frenzy online. Suddenly, theories shifted from tragic accident to targeted silencing. And the timing couldn't be more suspicious, because as this insider spoke out, new forensic details about Malcolm's death were quietly being leaked to the press. Details that raise even more red flags. And when those forensic results hit the headlines, the entire world finally had to ask, was Malcolm's death really an accident, or was it something far more sinister? Just when the dust seemed like it might settle, the real shock arrived, straight from the forensic lab. According to leaked reports, the initial Costa Rican police statement described Malcolm J. Warner's death as a medical emergency, no signs of foul play, no evidence of struggle, a tragic natural end. But the independent forensic review, commissioned quietly by Malcolm's family, tells a very different story. First, toxicology. Experts found trace amounts of an unusual compound in Malcolm's system, one not commonly available over the counter and typically used in controlled medical environments. While the concentration wasn't enough to be immediately fatal, the report states it could have caused disorientation, dizziness, and sudden loss of consciousness, especially in the tropical heat. Then came the physical evidence. The Costa Rican authorities claimed Malcolm collapsed alone in his rented villa, but independent investigators discovered subtle bruising on his forearms, the kind consistent with someone being gripped tightly. Even more unsettling, a faint abrasion near his neck, partially concealed by his shirt collar in the official photos. And perhaps the most chilling detail, the time of death. The forensic timeline suggests Malcolm likely died hours earlier than the official report stated, a gap that raises serious questions about who had access to him during that window, and why it took so long for emergency services to be called. When this information hit the internet, it was like pouring gasoline on a wildfire. Forums exploded with speculation. Was the mystery figure in Costa Rica more than just a coincidence? Did someone close to Malcolm ensure his silence before that press conference could ever happen? And perhaps the biggest question of all, where is that missing folder of evidence he was protecting? Even Malcolm's most loyal friends are now calling for an international investigation, arguing that too many details don't add up. The Costa Rican police have declined to comment, while U.S. authorities remain tight-lipped. But to Malcolm's fans, there's no denying one thing. This no longer feels like a closed case. If anything, it's a door that's just been kicked wide open. And with insiders breaking ranks, physical evidence contradicting official reports, and a digital paper trail that could blow the lid off Hollywood, it's clear that Malcolm's story is far from over. From the moment news broke of Malcolm J. Warner's sudden death, the narrative seemed too neat, too packaged, like it had been pre-written for the public. But as we've peeled back each layer, the mysterious companion in Costa Rica, the hidden folder of evidence, the bruising that shouldn't have been there, and the toxicology report that raises more questions than answers, one thing has become clear. This is not just a story of loss. This is a story of power, secrets, and the lengths people will go to protect them. Was Malcolm silenced before he could expose something explosive? Was this a tragic coincidence with a series of misunderstandings? Or a calculated move in a game much bigger than we can imagine? The truth might be buried for now, but with every new piece of evidence, the cracks in the official story are getting wider. And here's where you come in. I want to hear your theory. Do you believe Malcolm's death was an accident, or do you think there's something darker at play? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every single one, and your perspective might be the missing piece that changes everything. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, make sure you hit that like button so YouTube knows this story matters, and subscribe so you don't miss my next investigation. Because trust me, the next chapter in this saga could break at any moment. Until then, stay alert, question everything, and never settle for the first version of the truth you're told.